Hi there, friends. So, what do I mean by we just have a limited lifespan to accomplish things? Let me give you an example. I always wanted to make a living as an author, as a writer. And I started in college, high school, then college. I wrote stuff that I thought resembled what a poem should look like. I want to be a poet. Wanted to have a few acres of land with a pond and a canoe and guitar, serenade young women, and those were the days that I was imagining would go forever. And I went to college. College got in my way. Not totally, not like work did, but in college I did go to I picked colleges that I could actually succeed in. The first college, you could just say that I came as close to failing out as you can. Went to Western Kentucky University and got my degree in psychology and sociology, double major. I like sociology the best. Let's move on. Let's skip my work situation and realized in college that poetry was really selling well by almost anyone that self published their own book. And I was lucky enough to run into a few of these authors, and they helped me with ideas of how the book should look, how many pages it should have, how to market it. Back then, we had chain bookstores, so if you could get your book into a chain, and especially since in the 60s and 70s, late 60s and 70s, the Vietnam War was going on, and that brought a sensitivity where people bought poetry books. And not only were they buying poetry books, but the girlfriends would buy poetry books and send them overseas to their lovers or spouses in Vietnam or in other places in the military. I thought this was going to go on forever. Um, I have mentioned this probably in another video, but let's just say that uh, there was a poet that finally became famous in his 30s. I think it's I'd be right to say middle to late 30s. His name was Rod McEwen. People said I wrote like him. I didn't know who Rod McEwen was. Later on, I bought his books when I could afford them. Um, it's funny. His first book, Stallion Street and Other Sorrows, was $3.95, and I used to go into the bookstores, different bookstores, and I would look at it. I'd say one day I'll have an extra $3.95. I was in college, and I would I would read his books, and I think, wow, um, he he's a good simple writer. He doesn't try to rhyme or anything like that. But I told myself, and I was probably around 19 or 20 at the time. I said, if I can't make it by the time I'm in my 30s, I might as well give up right now. And I was talking about fame and fortune. By that time, his book was everywhere. And he came out with a series of books after that, along with three albums called The Sea, the Earth, and the Sky, that was in every Kmart, every Walmart, and every record shop. And I thought, man, he took a lot of years to become famous. I ought to be able to do this much faster by the time I'm in my mid to late 20s. Okay, so we had a lifespan there that anything I was writing, the stores would take them. There's a store in Tampa, Florida. I had about 5 poetry books out at the time. These books were 64 pages. They would fit in racks, spin racks, like you'd find in drugstores and places like that. So 5.5 by 8.5 was the size, normal size for books. And I thought for sure I was on my way to being a millionaire because this Tampa store, I'll never forget. They started off by buying two of each book, and then the last order was 20 of each book. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but back then it, it was very good, and the book sold in all states. However, by the beaches, where there was um, uh, I want to say California, there are beaches, Florida, all those places, Orlando, Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and just naming a few of the primary cities I remember getting huge orders from, as well as the Midwest and everywhere else, but not like the coast. I thought this was going to go on forever, so I thought I had plenty of time. So I upped the print run from initial 1,000 copies for the first book, then went to 2,500 copies per book, then went to 5,000 copies of each book, with the idea of coming out with at least one book every 8 or 9 months. And that's what Peter McWilliams told me to do. He was the top selling poet at that time, selling over 2 million copies real fast. He was in the Spencer gift shops. Um, I don't think he was in the chains like Cracker Barrel and the food chains, but he was in enough card shops and bookstores to sell that many books. And same age I am right now, except he's passed away, unfortunately, from AIDS. And he was he ended up in California in a bad situation, going into depression, getting involved with a guru and a cult, and even the cult member died. So I suspect that there was a lot of AIDS going around his community at the time. He was a gay activist, a marijuana activist, and trying to help people that were gay not catch AIDS. During the time I knew him, I did not know that he whether he was straight or gay because it never came up. He put his arm around my shoulder one time as we were walking down at the New York City American Booksellers Association. He was going to introduce me to Doubleday Publishing House, their executive publisher. He thought they'd pick me up. They had picked him up for one or two books, so he was trying to help me out. Um, Moving right along, I continued writing and publishing books to 1978. That was the last book. And I didn't know it was going to be the last book, but at that time, the books slowed down. All poetry books by everybody slowed down. And I was getting them returned for refunds. That's the way the book business operates. It operates like a big credit card. You ship the books out, they take them like they were on consignment, and then you ship back what doesn't sell and trade them for the new books that are coming out, or you give them cash. In my case, it came down to I wasn't publishing anything new, so I had to pay cash to Walden Books in particular because they had bought the most. Um, let's see. Let's just move on and say that I thought it was going to go on forever. I thought I was going to become a multimillionaire. I thought I could do everything Rod McEwen could do. And I got to know a lot of the other poets that were doing well. They were all about my age, and at this particular moment, um, they've all passed away. One was hit on motorcycle, another one hit on a bicycle and killed. Um, Another one just had a heart attack. So hopefully the vitamins I take, and I do take a lot, um, it is helping keeping me alive here. Okay, let's move on to my energy level decreasing. I had plenty of energy. I said work got in the way. I went back. See, after the Western Kentucky University episode, um, graduate schools didn't like my GPA, that's graduate record exam scores. And I had difficult getting into a master's or doctorate program in psychology until I called Spalding University. They took me on probation, and that's where I got a master's in clinical psychology. From there, I failed the psychology board 3 times because of nervousness and being shy. Once I passed it, I just, not bragging, just telling you I had to overcome shyness and lack of experience. So once I passed that, and it took several years because I they would only let you take it once every 6 months, and then if you failed it a second time, you had to wait a year. So I waited 2 years because I was so sure I wasn't going to pass it anyhow. But I did pass it the third time. Went over from Kentucky to Indiana. I decided to mop the floor up with every license I could get in mental health, which included alcohol and drug treatment, clinical social work, marriage and family therapy, and school psychologist. Only needed one of those, actually. Any one of them would have done. well, not any one, but say the licensed clinical social worker or licensed marriage and family therapist. Either one of those would have uh, allowed me to do what I did, which was go independent and bill insurance companies. You had to have a license to do that, and you had to have one of those two licenses at that time. Well, moving right along, um, everything else got put to the side. Um, I still stayed in the book business, but not writing. I bought from other publishers that weren't selling their books, and resold them on Amazon mostly. And I had so much energy. I remember sometimes I ran to the post office twice a day. In the morning, if I had a lot of orders on Amazon, now I was selling on the aftermarket, or the used books, secondhand books, also with eBay. So I had this energy level that allowed me to not only do that, uh, make a run in the morning. If orders kept piling in, I'd be packing the rest of the day, and make a second run before 4:30, which is when they closed. I don't know how many books I sold. I will tell you this: my books did stop selling, my poetry books, and with every order, I would of somebody else's books, I would put one of mine in as a free gift. Several people appreciated it and thanked me for it. Others didn't. I didn't care. I just wanted to get rid of the books. I had When you order 5,000 of every book that you've published and they're not selling, you've got two choices: um, destroy them in a dumpster, get rid of them in a dumpster, or give them away because they ain't selling. So then I started two counseling centers, one in Kentucky, Carrollton, Kentucky, and the other one here in Madison, Indiana. And I was hoping other people would join in and start uh, renting from me, because I had many rooms in those buildings. That was the goal: was be the owner and let the others earn the money. What happened is they all left. I may have gotten paid 1 or 2 months by a couple of the people, and then I got letters in my mailbox inside the counseling center. We all had our own mailbox, saying that they found cheaper places to go to, or they decided to go and work for a business. So I'm stuck here with the leases. 3-year leases in Carrollton, 3-year lease here in Madison, and then I moved to a cheaper place, so I had to complete those two leases. One of them was 900 plus utilities, the one in Madison. The other one in Carrollton was about the same because they were sizable. Sizable. The one in Madison was actually 2 stories and a basement. So you're talking about a lot of utilities. You're talking about uh, when something broke down, like the compressor of an air conditioner outside for central air conditioning. I was out a couple thousand. Can't tell you how much money I drained and wasted with signing leases, not having proper um, counsel, legal counsel. The one thing I've learned that I hope I don't need to use again is I learned I should have always had an exit clause. If things went wrong, if I lost money, I could pull out of the contract. But I didn't have exit clauses. The only way I could have gotten out of them is gone bankrupt, and I didn't want that to be in the paper uh, at all because I was um, I was working privately, and I wanted to be successful and to appear successful. Nothing lasts forever. Things came crashing down. I left as the leases expired. I was done with them, but then the other parts of my life started falling apart, like my health. I was working so hard. Anytime I had to let a secretary go because I couldn't pay him anymore, I became their enemy and they wouldn't even look at me again. So this continued on, and I had actually seen enough people and handed out enough cards, business cards, that I continued after I left the last place. I left it because the money dried up, but I was still on the insurance networks and I still could make a little bit of money that way. So if people called up and they were regular customers, I would actually see them wherever they wanted to meet. I'd pay for their lunch. I don't care if it was Red Lobster or if it was McDonald's or Frisch's. I would go ahead and say, let's meet there. I'll take you out for lunch, and that's where we'll have our meeting. I remember once I used to smoke cigars. My favorite was Nicaraguan. I had a couple uh, lady friends that liked to smoke, and they said, "Why don't we do our sessions in the smoke shop?" I forgot the name of it. They're not here now, but I said sure. So we'd have a 1 or 2 hour session in the smoke shop. I'd smoke the cigars. They'd smoke fancy cigarettes. I'd pay for them. Paid for the tobacco, the whatever they smoked, plus what I smoked. If they wanted to meet uh, to eat, we'd do that. So I didn't have an office. I went from having 3 offices, two under lease, plus a third one that I had begun under lease. So just started. That was much cheaper. Not sure if that was good language or not. Begun should have been began. But anyhow, I had gotten down to my car being the office. Nothing lasts forever. I had tremendous grants for seeing people with addictions earlier, to where all those losses I was taking from the leases, I could pay those. I could pay their utilities. I could pay my third building that I was leasing. I could have yellow page ads in about 4 or 5 counties, because the more people I saw, the more money I made. And at that time, the state of Indiana had what's called the Hoosier Assurance Plan. That is not Medicaid. That is a separate addictions, mainly addictions, sum of money. And I got into both substance abuse as well as gambling addiction. Gambling addiction was becoming a hot subject here in Indiana because of all the boats were getting licenses to for gambling. Did that for 3 years and made a tremendous amount of money. Nothing lasts forever. They cut that money off from individual people like me and only gave it to community mental health facilities. So that's why I ended up in the car as my office. I couldn't afford it anymore. I thought that was it. I sent everybody letters saying I was retiring, and but I didn't. The phone rang, and I couldn't say no, so I'd meet them wherever they want to meet. Um, if they were handicapped and couldn't drive, two of them were that way. They were elderly and couldn't drive, couldn't see well, so I would see them at home in their home. And sometimes take them lunch from McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's, something like that. And we would eat and we would talk. So I never saw myself as what you call an excellent therapist. I saw myself as a giving person, a listening person, and I'd be very careful on giving feedback. I wanted them to come up with what was good for them. And I didn't use any judgmental, no behavioral, telling them they had to do this, 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 and this, no homework assignments. Because if you give them a homework assignment, if a therapist does, there's another 7 days that's gone by, and there's a lot of other stuff that's on their mind. And a homework for 1 week would not apply to what was going on in their life the next week. That's the way I saw it. That's not the way others saw it. That's why I worked by myself. Nobody'd work with me. They actually didn't want to work as hard as I did, and they did not want to pay the rent. And my rent wasn't that high, about $400 a month. And here I am paying $1,200 plus utilities, plus phone, plus fax, plus um, repair on central air conditioning and furnace and all that. So I got abandoned every time I took a lease on to help other people that wanted to work individually. Okay, so it got down to the point where I was shipping out these books and my energy level just crashed. I, I stopped. I stopped shipping books totally. Absolutely stopped. And to this day, it's very difficult for me to want to pack up a package of anything and mail it. I do. I do still have, well, 4 new books available. I say new; they're they're put out 3 or 4 years ago, and just in case you want to know the titles, because um, a set of four: the summer of love, the autumn of love, the winter of love, and the spring of love. Had those came out about 3 or 4 years ago. I had a wild idea that we're going to start this thing back up. That the goals can last forever. I pictured having them in the Cracker Barrel shops and in a few Barnes and Noble bookstores that were around, but mostly in gift shops, college stores, everything I had before. I thought I knew as much, but a lot more on how to market poetry books. What what I didn't realize was that everybody began to self-publish books, and everybody thought they were a poet. I just put poetry books on the search engine of Amazon and see him. I love poetry books. Put that there and see what you come up with. Just untold number, with more every day being uploaded onto Amazon site because they print them as they sell them. So you're not out any money until you sell one. They keep the printing costs, of course, and then a profit. And then they ship the book out, and then they send you money, supposedly. I say supposedly, I think occasionally I get payment, um, but not often because there's too many books being uploaded a day. When I say uploaded, I mean from a PDF file. People are making books from home, uploading them onto Amazon for free. So you're competing with hundreds, if not thousands, of books a day. At least hundreds of poetry books a day is being uploaded. I think I read where there were more than that. But if you include the novels, self help books, probably way over 1,000. I think I saw 1,200 once, but I think I'm underestimating. So what's happening is that books that I put out 4 years ago or less have been pushed to the back with new books coming forth, and them doing advertising or hiring an advertising firm to do it, which I don't. I have, but I don't now. I used to have national distributors that sold my books in all their bookstores and card shops. But that's a turn of events. There's been a turn of events. Nothing lasts forever. Everything has a time span. So the time span, I missed a lot of time spans. So we're on a different route now. And the route is I no longer do counseling. I no longer am motivated to write poetry books. Um, I tried to come up with some ideas of what I could do that would be fulfilling. Oil painting, I used to be really good at during the first year of college, sold all my paintings. I thought about that. Um, then all of a sudden I thought, well, let's try this YouTube, and it's a rough start. I'm just now uploading ones I did live, and very few, like when you look at the few I have on there, I pulled them from the live section. If you want to see every YouTube I've done since I started about a month ago, you need to go to the third column that says live. You hit that, you'll see every YouTube that I did. And I'm not real proud of them because I ramble. Let's call it what it is. I ramble a lot. It takes me a while to recall. I think of things at the last minute to share. And that's that's my way during this video of explaining why I think everything has unlimited lifespan. I had a lifespan where I could have made a lot of money marketing poetry books. I didn't push aggressively enough. I was in college. I just played. First book was 32 pages, not 64. Last books are 140 pages, not 32. But that's beside the point. The book sold, but I didn't aggressively um, push hard. Um, could have could have sold a million easily. I did get into the car and go to different cities around here in the Midwest, and didn't have any problems getting them into the bookstores and card shops, and they'd reorder. If I'd have done, if I'd have known there was a limited lifespan of the sales of those books, I might have taken a year off from college or 2 years and just done I want to say 50 state tour and had all the cities that had malls. So to all that would buy gift shops, college stores, Walden bookstores, B. Dalton booksellers, Books a Million, and I would have uh, I would have been set for life. Another interesting thing that doesn't last forever is the stock market. Uh, just share this because I made a rebound on it. Uh, I was putting my retirement money in the stock market in what's called 401ks, which is an IRA that you don't have to pay taxes on. Well, when I lost all this money, when I was cut off from the funding in Indianapolis for gambling and substance abuse treatment, and it was all outpatient in my office. So I had plenty of money to pay for leases and things like that because there was so much money I was making at that time until they shut it off. And it was just like someone, it was like the washing machine finally decides it's done and it shuts off. So during that time, I had health problems. I'd go and see doctors, and doctors would think I was seeking pain medicine because I was in pain. Um, Finally, one doctor sent me for tests and found out I needed an operation. I got the operation and took a while to get better. Um, at that time, I had to pay those debts off. I had telephone advertisements in about several different counties in the yellow pages. I may have still had some leases I was finishing paying off from places I rented. All I know is I owed $120,000 and I was using 11 credit cards. And because I was late on one or two, they have what was called universal default. That means the credit the credit bureaus would notify all the other credit companies that you were late on a card or two, and they would raise their rates of interest to 29.9%. I think that's what it was, 29.9%. It went from 15% up to 29.9% on even the ones that I was paying on time and didn't go over the limit. That was called universal default. Um, that was taken to court and overturned. They don't do that anymore. My interest, this is going to blow your mind. My interest each month for the overcharge, well, interest. overcharge fees. $1,200. $1,200 a month. That's before I paid the first penny on a loan. I'm calling them loans or credit cards, living credit cards. Um, I cashed in all my retirement money. That was like operating on myself. You wouldn't know what it would feel like unless you worked since you were 14 and saved money, and all of a sudden took most of it out up to that point and call the companies up and say, "Would you sell out all my mutual fund," which was what I was in. Mutual fund being organizations that held a lot of stocks. So I had different mutual funds. Would you send me a check for the proceeds? And I paid off every penny I owed. 2008, 2009. Little did I know that I sold out right before the crash called the Great Recession. I sold off right at the top before it crashed. Nothing seems to last forever. Everything seems to have a limited lifespan, and so did the stock market. But there was something else. I was reading about John Templeton that started the Templeton Funds, and when he got out of college, he borrowed money and he bought every stock that was $1 or less. Don't know how many shares of each stock he bought. $1 or less, he would buy the shares. He became so wealthy after about 3 or 4 years that he started his own mutual fund and then many different mutual funds depending on what category you wanted to invest in, overseas, U.S. Big stocks, United States small stocks. Just uh, he's passed away, but I remember that. Okay, so bad times don't last forever. They have a limited lifespan. And this was my first rodeo with the stock market since I started buying stocks in my teenage years. So this wasn't the first time I've lost a lot of money. So I borrowed money. I borrowed money any way I could. And I would like to say friends, but I've never had a lot of friends, but enough, I guess. I had some money left that I didn't have to cash out. So I started buying any stock under $1 that was on the stock exchange that I recognized. And in a matter of a few years, I had regained all of the money I had cashed out to pay off my bills and then paid off my house. So nobody's going to take my house. Everything has a limited life span, and so did the bad times. We've been in a period of good times with the stock market. I don't pay much attention to it anymore. Um, I even thought about going back to playing the guitar too. I'm looking at a guitar right now. Um, I actually made a 45 hit record once when I was in college. I have one copy left. But It was never a national hit. I promise you that. Hope you've enjoyed listening to this rambling um, session of ups and downs that I've had, and why, if you're on a roll, stay on the roll. And I'm saying, if you're doing something and it's working well, do it to the best that you can as long as you can. If you're at the bottom of a cycle, realize that I've been there too, and I can tell you what happened. It took about 4 years to get my first job after I finished my master's degree in psychology. It just seemed like there were too many people that were in the mental health field then. After that 4 years, Charter Hospital hired me for part time, 20 hours, making $8 or $9 an hour. And then another company hired me to work part time, and then a third one, University of Louisville Psychiatric Services. Of course, they were different hours, working three jobs at one time. That's what I'm talking about. You're going to have your energy for a limited amount of time. And I could do that. Since that time, after the 4 years of not being hired, well, I mean, I could do substitute teaching, and I did. When they called me, went in, and if kids were nice, I had a good day. If they threw Coke bottles at me or something, I had a bad day. And that did happen. Um, so after those 4 bad years, I was never without work, even though I did leave working with the normal agencies and hospitals and worked for myself. I never was without too much to do. Everything's got a limited lifespan. I had to stop. Age catches up with you, and you just don't have the energy or desire to keep pouring gasoline into your motor. So let's see what we can do with this new hobby of YouTube. I bet you no one's made it this far. Usually it tells me how long I've been talking. 48 minutes. Okay, you've got your money's worth. Hey, come back and visit, okay? Take care. God bless you. Have a great new year. Have a great 2024.